Anyhow, Donald Trump, he went down to Louisiana and for about 5 minutes passed out Play-Doh. That's something that's really going to be helpful, right? Play-Doh? It's not even clear where it came from or if he had anything to do with it. And then he touts the fact that he gave $100,000 to a charity. Well, the charity, I'm going to give $100,000 to charity, to a church, the Greenwell Springs Baptist Church. Well, it turns out, and we did this story last week, when the flooding was happening in Louisiana, that there's this guy, Tony Perkins, who runs the Family Research Council, and Tony Perkins is a notorious homophobe. And Tony Perkins has been on the record numerous times, probably even on this program. He used to come on this show and I would debate him. He won't come on anymore. He's just, afraid to. But Tony Perkins used to claim that people in America died in floods because they sanctioned gay marriage. And then he lost his home in a flood. He has created a 501c3, a front group, to gather money, apparently to help him build his home, which is probably the parish for, or whatever the word is. Parish isn't the right word. What is the word for the residence of a minister? Whatever it is, anyway. And it's called the Greenwell Springs Baptist Church. So basically, Donald Trump went down to Louisiana and gave Tony Perkins $100,000 to rebuild his house and passed out Play-Doh. And this is a serious presidential candidate? Oh, and then he buys millions of dollars. He takes, once he starts raising money from people and, well-intentioned people all across the country sending him money thinking that they're going to somehow make America great again. And what does he do with that money? He takes something like $7 million of it and buys his own book. Now, he could have bought that book directly from the publisher. I can tell you, I'm a published author, right? I can buy any of my books that are in print from any of my publishers at half off, which is basically what bookstores pay for them. In fact, a couple of my publishers will sell them to me at 40% off because there are people, I'm not one of them, but there are people who are authors who make a living going around, traveling around the country, giving speeches and selling their books at those venues. And they buy them from the publisher at 40% off and they sell them at full retail. And it's a way of making a little extra money when you're doing a book tour. I've never done that. I've got a lousy back. I don't want to haul around cases of books. And I like to support local bookstores. So I always try to get a local bookstore to come in if I'm going to give a speech. And, if the whoever is putting on the event wants me to be, wants my books to be available. But rather than buying them from the publisher, Trump took his donors' money and bought them from Barnes & Noble. Now, why would he do that? Why would he spend twice as much money on the books that they were passing out as freebies at the Republican convention? Why would he do that? Well, the reason why is because Barnes & Noble is one of the major people who feed into the New York Times bestseller list. And so and also the algorithm that they use, and Barnes & Noble is the largest physical retailer of books in the country. So if you want to get a lot of your books in a Barnes & Noble store, they order books from the publisher. Are they going to have 3 copies of your book, or are they going to have 30 copies by the front door, right? They will have 30 copies by the front door if they're, and this is all computerized, if their algorithm tells you that they're selling a hell of a lot of your books, then they'll start buying even more. It's almost like one of those things where rich people get richer and poor people get poorer. It's like, so if you go in and you buy tens of thousands of dollars, it might have been tens of thousands, it might not have been millions, but whatever it was. If you go in and you buy lots and lots and lots of your own book at full retail, then what happens is that if you buy them from Barnes & Noble will replace those and more, and they'll do it all across the country. In other words, now your book has a whole new life. So everything Donald Trump does is a hustle. And now he's doing the hustle with his donors' money. It's fascinating to watch. I mean, the guy genuinely has become a Republican because it's all about the scam. It's the art of the scam.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
In fact, this should be Donald Trump's new book, is The Art of the Scam. Actually, anybody could write a book about the Trump campaign and call it that.